Today I've got questions about some clothing items and some questions on the Wine Posset episode. Thanks for joining us today on Questions and Answers with James Townsend and Son. Again, I want to thank everyone out there for your great questions and your wonderful comments. It's very, very encouraging. Our first question comes from In the Kitchen 48, and she says, "This dish looks amazingly delicious, but I'd want to serve it to children. I don't want to serve it to children because of the alcohol." And then she goes on to ask about a substitution. And, I gave suggestions there at the very end about substitutions. One of them being lemon juice and orange juice, a mixture of those, the same quantity, substituting in for the wine, or a possibility of apple cider. I didn't try the apple cider, so that one, I'm sure that might be interesting. So, also, related to that, Virtual Super Soldier, he says, I would think that spiced rum or brandy would work better flavor-wise. I wonder if there's a chemical reason for adding the wine specifically. Does it need the acidity of the wine? Well, the substitution of the lemon juice and the orange juice was sort of to substitute that same kind of acidity to get that to. I mean, this particular posset doesn't separate out, doesn't curd up. Some of the other ones you do get that impression that that's happening, and that happens sometimes in a caudle also. But this actually specifically says keep stirring it, so you don't want that to happen. So more than likely, substituting an alcohol rather than the wine would probably work out just fine. Bob My Place, I think that's what that is. He says, can you replace the wine with mirin, which is a Japanese rice wine, and it's kind of a sweet wine. I'm sure it would make a great substitute if that kind of flavor is something you like. Nomo Gizmo 111200, he says, is it a drink or is it a dessert? I always thought posset was a drink. Well, it's both. Really depends on how you make it up and how much thickening goes on. If you don't add too many of either the breadcrumbs, or if you make it with eggs, if you don't cook it too long, you'll get a thinner thing that you can drink, or you keep going and you get it thicker. Now, this all relates to the next comment, which I thought was very interesting. It's Pocky2, and he says, we still eat posset in England, or at least a dish bearing the same name. A present-day posset consists of milk, cream, egg yolk, sugar, often with a dash of brandy or rum. No doubt a legacy of sorts to the sack possets shown here. The most common flavor is lemon juice. So my guess was right about that. But sharp fruits such as black currant or my favorite gooseberry was used. However, nowadays a posset is eaten cold as a dessert, much thicker. And then he goes on commenting about the addition of breadcrumbs being different than what a modern one is like. So that's an interesting take. So they still do a posset in England, and it's much the same ingredients, but the wine isn't used, and they use sometimes another kind of brandy or rum. So all these suggestions and substitutions here kind of catch right up to the modern version. This is very interesting. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce this one, but it's Jadranahistrum. And the question is, what is that light blue vest you're wearing? Is that an 18th century waistcoat? Yeah, I'm wearing what we call our 18th century or our 1770s waistcoat. This one is a light blue linen. That's one that we commonly carry and sell. In the 18th century, it was called either a waistcoat or a waistcoat. The spellings vary, and how they pronounced it, I'm not exactly sure. Nobody really knows exactly how somebody pronounces something in the 18th century, but we usually call it a waistcoat. We also have a 1750s waistcoat and some other similar vests for the 19th century, like 1805 and 1830s versions of waistcoats like this. Our last question comes from James McGuire. He says, I have a question related to appliances that would have been available in the 18th century chefs and home cooks. Was there an 18th century version, the food processor, dough kneader, or mixer at the time? Well, there is a a common appliance that gets referred to in recipes and that you see quite often in period paintings and similar, and that is the mortar and pestle. They had brass mortar and pestles like this, but usually for food preparation, they used a very large marble mortar and pestle. And so you'll often see those in paintings. The problem is in the modern context, very large marble mortar and pestles are hard to come by. They're very heavy, they're hard to ship, and they are not available in very many places. I have a rather small one in the kitchen. I don't have it here with me. It's kind of a medium size one. What you really want is a really big one, and they would mash up all different kinds of products in this 18th century food processor. Now, the best thing that we have available to us is we have our very large stoneware bowls. They're very thick, very sturdy, and the mashers that we've just added to our line. And this makes a good substitute for that same mortar and pestle. You really don't want to use the brass ones with something that might take on the brassy flavor, especially anything that's acidic or meat wise. So the ceramic or marble one is really the one you want to go with. But that's really the most common, other than just knives and similar bowls or whatever. That's probably the closest thing there is to a 18th century food processor. Oh yeah, and by the way, James McGuire did a very interesting blog post on our videos and on our YouTube channel. I really want to thank James so much for that blog post. If you're interested in his blog article on James Townsend and Son, I'll put a link down in the description. Again, I want to thank everyone for your great questions, your wonderful comments. Please keep those questions coming. Thanks so much for watching. If you're a new viewer and you haven't subscribed, press the subscribe button up here. That'll take you to a spot where you can subscribe. That really is the best way to get notification of all the new videos that are out. I want to thank everyone for watching.